Instead of the term, how can we love ourselves more, I'd like to ask, how can we accept ourselves more? That in the way most of us have been socialized, the way in which a child learns, the initial learning, is that the parent is under pressure to socialize the child, to make the child socially functional. And in doing that, they emotionally, whether they intend to or not, reward and punish the child for behaviors. And the result is that when that starts very early, before there is a lot of reasoning process between the parent and the child develops certain emotional feelings that certain ways it is in its natural state are not acceptable. And the result is some feelings of unworthiness or inadequacy or something in most human beings as a result of socialization. Very few people ever come through socialization unscathed in some way or other. I mean, that's not an unfair statement, I don't think. So in a way you could see that ego or personality is in a way built upon, and that's where Freud understood it. He saw that the repression of id, or impulse life, because of the way the society has to deal with a child's impulses to get it to be socialized, usually is left with a feeling that somehow I'm bad. I have these things that are not acceptable. And so then you build this social structure, and often what you end up with is a personality that's constantly looking to the world and other people. Do you approve of me? Do you like me? Am I good enough? Am I acceptable to you? And have I achieved enough? And you get an A for effort, and you feel good. And if you don't get the A, it's not like you feel nothing, you feel bad. And it's as if the baseline is negative, not zero. Do you hear the issue that I'm talking about? Now, so that you're constantly using your life experiences as a way to disprove a basic negative feeling about yourself. And that's a very, very common thing in social structure and in human development, in ego development. Now, so many psychological systems, like Freud's system, for example, works primarily with negative going to zero. That's the domain that you work with. Right behind that is where the spiritual dimension begins, and that's a part that looks at the universe and just sees it as it is. It doesn't see when you've got a negative thing, the opposite, when you're trying to undo it, you could undo it by emphasizing the positive. Like if you don't like yourself, you could emphasize, I love myself, which is, how do we love ourselves more, is the question. Or we could say, let's go behind love and hate and find a place where we merely acknowledge ourselves, where we just allow our humanity. And we hear that there is negativity in us, and there is inadequacy, and we allow ourselves. And the word that I have come up with, that I'm finding most comfortable to work with, is the word appreciation. That we can just appreciate what is. It's interesting, the way I've looked at it is that you go out into the woods and into the forests, and you look at trees and you appreciate the trees. You don't say that tree is good and that tree is bad because one tree is fat and one is thin, or one is tall and one is short, or one is bent and one is straight, unless you're in the lumber business. For the most part, you just look at the trees and you appreciate them the way they are. They are what they are, and you can appreciate them. But the minute you get near humans, it's interesting that you immediately go into a judging mode. You come into better and worse, and you do that out of your own insecurity. You do that out of your own need constantly to be reassuring yourself. So you're saying that person is got more hair than I do, or that person is see, that's the one I picked. So I wonder why that, or you go into you find dimensions constantly judging and equating. Am I as good as? Am I equal to? Am I as good a mother? Am I as beautiful a woman? Am I as effective a worker? Am I whatever it is, whatever dimension? And you get caught in constantly living in a judging realm. And if you start to practice seeing people as trees, I don't mean in the in the sense of just appreciating what they are, including yourself, and just starting to appreciate yourself, appreciate your humanity. Like when I'm supposed to be, I'm Ram Dass, and I've worked on myself, and I'm supposed to be equanimous, loving, present, clear, compassionate, accepting. Oftentimes, I get tired, I'm angry, I'm petulant, I'm closed down. Now, for a long time, I get into those states, and I would feel really embarrassed because that is what I'm supposed to be. So I would appear like I was warm, charming, equanimous, compassionate, and there was deviousness and deception. And then I realized that's bad business, because that cuts us off from each other. And I had to risk my truth. I had to risk being human with other people and realize that what we offer each other is our truth. And our truth includes all of our stuff. And the first thing I had to do was accept my own truth. I had to allow myself to be a human being. And I think that I was very helped by my spook friend Emmanuel, my disembodied friend, who, when I said to him, Emmanuel, what am I doing on Earth? He said, why don't you try, you're on Earth, why don't you try taking the curriculum? Why don't you try being human? And I had always assumed the way to God was to deny your humanity and embrace your divinity. And then I realized that the way to truth might be through acknowledging the fullness of where I found myself to be, which was my humanity and my divinity. And not wallow in it, but acknowledge it. And not reverence it or judge it. Just appreciate it. Just allow it. Allow my humanity. So I have gotten to the point now where I am what I am much more. And some people like it and some people don't like it. And if they like it, that's their problem. And if they don't like it, that's their problem. I don't take it all on myself and as much. And, well, it's a slow process. It's a slow process. Now, what I found was that as I started to allow myself to be human more, just allowed what I am, things changed much faster in me. I mean, things fell away more quickly. It was as if I was locked into a model which was based on that negativity, that dislike of myself. And once I just allowed that I am human with all the foibles, things started to flow, and I could feel change occurring in myself. And then I would start to experience my own beauty. And it frightened me, because it was so dissonant and discrepant from the model that I had cultivated of myself over the years, that I had to do good in order to be beautiful. And the idea that I just am, that what is, when you look at a tree or a rock or a river, it is in its own way beautiful. You look at decay, it is beautiful. I know Laura Huxley, who's a very dear friend, in her kitchen, she has these jars over the sink, and she takes old beet greens and orange peels and things and sticks them in water in these long, beautiful pharmaceutical jars, and then they slowly mold and decay, and there are these beautiful decay formations and mold, and it's really garbage. It's garbage as art. And we look at it, and it's absolutely beautiful. There's absolute beauty in that. And I've begun to expand my awareness to be able to look at the universe as it is and see what is called the horrible beauty of it. The horrible beauty of it. There's horror and beauty in all of it, because there's decay in all of it. I mean, we're all decaying. I look at my hand, and it's decaying. And it's beautiful and horrible at the same moment. And I just live with that. And with that, I start to see the beauty in it. So we're talking about appreciating what is. Not loving yourself as opposed to not liking yourself.
Say something really basic and really central to all of you. I'm going to be gentle with you by asking a prodding question that you should refuse to answer. How'd you get to the point of not trusting yourself? How'd you get to the point of not even knowing you have a guidance system? How'd you get to the point of not trusting that if it feels good it is, and if it feels bad it's not so good? The answer to that question is you put others first. You put their response first. You cared more about their response to you and what you were doing than you cared to your own response to what you're doing. That's why until we can convince you that you've got to be more selfish and care about how you feel, we can't find a beginning place for you in all of this. We cannot start with a topic like food or even money, where you have so many habits of thought about it. We can't get to a pure place easily about that. So you got to find a way of getting so general, and meditation is the easiest way to get general that we know. And we'll just keep saying to you, we want you to care about how you feel. So after a little while, all of these things begin fitting together. As we say, you get what you think about, and how you feel really matters. And you want to follow the path of least resistance. And you want to be less conditional in your approach to life. And after a while, you start catching yourself being conditional. And you start catching yourself in the middle of a belief that you've honed that doesn't serve you. And you can usually tell it. This is the thing that is the most interesting. There are two ways to know when you are moving in the direction of who you really are and what you know. One is just let it play out into a condition that amplifies it bigger. So sometimes you'll be in a conversation with someone who's railing on and on about something, and you'll feel such annoyance, and you'll say, oh, it's happening now. Right now, I can feel this is resistance, it's happening now. But usually at that point, you can't really do that much about it because the momentum is already such, and so you're just going to have the conversation, and hopefully they'll get tired and go away soon. There are two ways of knowing whether you are moving in the direction of what your inner being knows, which is really what following your guidance is, or whether you're pandering to somebody else's. One is how it's playing out, which we just described, and the other is how it feels. So what we wish for all of you is that you get so sensitive that you catch it in the early subtle stages, that you become less willing to endure the offness of your own thoughts. Because really, it isn't that anybody else is introducing resistance into your equation. They're just amplifying the resistance that you've already got going. So if somebody's annoying you, it's not that they are the condition that needs to be eliminated. It's that they represent, you've attracted them to you by the mix of vibration that you've got going on. So it's very helpful to say, thank you very much for pointing out something that's active in me that makes me not feel good, that is causing me to not feel good. We're happy that you heard that in all the ways that we meant it. So do you create your own reality? Are you a vibrational being? Do you have emotion that tells you something? Is it guidance? What is it guidance about? It is guidance about the relativity between what? Who you're being and who you really are. Where you are and all that you really want. So the path between where you are and all that you really want, that's the path, and you're always on it. Can't get off it, because you are where you are. Write that down, that's important. You are where you are. You are where you are. You are where you are. You're always where you are. You are where you are. And you're either turned in the direction of where you want to be or in opposition to where you want to be. And your emotions let you know which you're doing. You ever started out feeling pretty good, and then you get engaged in something, you feel worse and worse and worse? Can't you just tell that you're moving in the wrong direction? So what keeps you from just getting up and doing something about that? Why don't you just move toward what feels better to you? What's the answer to that? What's the answer? Why don't I always move toward what feels best for me? Somebody else is involved. Somebody else is involved, and I'm trying to please them more than I'm trying to please me. And so much of the world would say, well, Abraham, you teach selfishness. And we say, you bet we do. We teach it with everything that we've got, because if you're not willing to follow yourself on your path of most allowance, then you have nothing consistently to give to anyone else anyway. And don't you know it? Because they never get enough of you. They never get enough from you. Don't you notice that? They always need you to be just a little different than you are so that they can feel a little better. They're looking for love in all the wrong places. They're looking for love in the wrong places. And it's conditional, isn't it? So, is this harsh or is it freeing?
It's freeing.
Is it problematic or is it liberating?
Liberating.
Is it harder to do or is it easier to do?
Easier.
Does it take some practice? Yes. Will some old beliefs fall by the wayside? Yes. Will you get feeling better and better? Yes. Does it become easier and easier? Yes. Does the momentum of alignment carry you further and further? Yes. So what is it? What's the manifestation that you really want? Happy. What's the manifestation? What do you want? To be happy? No, I mean, what do you want? To be happy. No, I mean, what do you want? To be happy. Where do you want to live? I don't care as long as I'm happy. Well, don't you want to mate? No, I just want to be happy. Well, all you want is to be happy? Yeah, happy. You don't care about eating? Yeah, that makes me happy. You don't care about money? That makes me happy too. You don't care about travel? Yeah, that makes me happy. But I care about happy. I care about happy. I care about the way I feel. Well, why are you so hung up on the way you feel? Because everything else follows that. And because I can get there in a minute. I can't get that car in the garage, or that person in the bed, or that empire established. I can't do that today, but I can get happy now. I can get happy now because I have the tools, because I can meditate the unhappiness away, because I can distract myself from the frequencies that prevent me from being there, because I can clean up my path by tripping over it and saying, enough of that, by becoming more determined, by becoming more specific, by becoming more deliberate, What do you mean? You mean you think harder? No, I care about how I feel more. How I feel is what inspires me to the journal. How I want to feel is what inspires me to what I choose to eat today. How I feel determines which way I turn in the hallway and who I run into, and how much time I spend visiting here and here and here and here and here. I care about how I feel. I care about how I feel. I care about how I feel. Well, don't you care about how I feel? Actually, yes. Life has caused me to really care about how you feel. I put a version of all of you, we're speaking from your point of view, I have put a version of you in my vortex. But when I look at you, I usually can't find that version. Because you are demonstrating conditions that don't match my version of you. Well, what's your version of me? They'll ask you. You're happy. You're happy, and you're eager, alive, and you're vital, and you know who you are. You're loving life. So everything I'm about is so that I can rendezvous with that version of you. So if it feels like I'm avoiding the condition of you for a while, understand that it's because I do care. It makes me happy to know you're happy. And when I look at you not happy, that's a condition I can't control. So then my observation of what I don't want perpetuates the very thing I don't want. Don't you love knowing this? Doesn't it make everything that you've ever seen in this entire life make sense? Doesn't it explain every relationship you've ever had? Doesn't it explain what's going on in the Middle East? Doesn't it explain what's going on with the economy? Doesn't it explain what's going on in every subject that you can conjure? It explains everything. Law of attraction is afoot, and billions of people offering vibrations, and law of attraction putting them together for co-creative enhancement of individual offerings. So you say to your friends, I really like hanging around you because you reflect what I'm outputting. Oh, you really like being with me? Not always. You reflect the best of me and you reflect the worst of me because you reflect what I've got going on. So the more you begin to like your friends, the more you'll know you've cleaned up your own vibration. So you get credit for everything good they are. Because you're rendezvousing with who they are based upon what you've got going on vibrationally, you see. Doesn't it make it all feel simpler? Don't you just want to kind of stop talking about it?
All things are possible. God never fails. And you are a piece of that which never fails. One of the great teachers in my life was Carlos Castaneda. And Castaneda talked about his teacher, who was what they call a nagual, a Native American term that refers to all that is knowable. And his teacher told him that your life is like being born into a room, a mansion, if you will, that has 1,000 rooms, but you're born into one room. And this one room is called daily human awareness. And the only way you can get in is through conception and birth. You're in. And the only way you can get out, we are taught, is to die. So we spend our lives in this mansion in one room, even though there's 999 other rooms. We don't know how to get out into those rooms unless we die. So we wait to die. And what his teacher told him is, I can teach you how to get out of the room of daily awareness and into the other 999 rooms. And if you stay with me and learn all that I have to give you, I can teach you how to get out of the house altogether without having to die. And what we have to do in order to get to that place where we can take the keys and unlock the self-imposed prisons, or the prisons that we have given ourselves on the basis of what we have come to believe is our limitations, what we can and can't do. We have to let go of that. And I call it rewriting our agreement with reality. We literally have to make a whole new contract with what it is that I perceive to be what is possible for me. And in order to do that, we have to shift out of the things that we have come to believe in, and everything that you came to this program watching tonight that you believe in was handed to you by someone else outside of you, was handed to you by the experiences or testimony of someone in the past. And because it comes from outside of you, there is still an element of doubt. And this element of doubt isn't bad, but it keeps you from reaching higher levels, because what you think about is what expands. And if you're thinking doubt, then doubt is what expands. William Blake said, if the sun and moon should ever doubt, they would immediately go out. So how do we get past what we believe in, or what has been handed to us, and still honor it and be grateful for all of the teachers and all of the people who have come before us? So what we have to learn to do is let go of that tribal consciousness and shift to what I call a knowing. Now, there's a big difference between what you believe and what you know. Everything that you know is something that you have made conscious contact with. Conscious contact. So there's nobody out there watching. There's nobody in this world who knows how to swim, who learned it by somebody else telling them that you can swim, or by watching Mark Spitz go through the water, or by observing other people doing it. You may remove some of the doubt, but you will never know how to swim until you get in the water and blubber around a few times and then do it. And then you'll have a knowing, and that knowing is something that you'll never lose, just like riding a bicycle or dancing the Macarena or making a lemon meringue pie, or anything that you know how to do. It's because you've made conscious contact. And I'd like to suggest that there's a big difference between knowing about a divine presence, knowing about a sacred awareness, knowing about God, and knowing God. There's a big difference. Just like there's a big difference between knowing about the possibility of being able to heal myself of something that is bothering me, perhaps a disease process. I perhaps may believe that it's possible because I've read other people and I've heard others say it. And I've read the testimony and I've listened to the tapes and I've gone to the seminars. But until you have made conscious contact with it, you'll never know it. Everything else that you have on our planet, that we have on our planet, comes about as a result of thinking. Thought makes it so. All right? This microphone comes about as a result of thinking. Somebody imagines it. Somebody then tells somebody else about it, and it creates it. The dress that you're wearing, this shirt that I'm wearing, the shoes that you have, the stage, these cameras. Everything that you see that wasn't given to us was created by man as a result of the way that we think. The way that we think. So what gets inside of us as a cell comes about as a result of the way that we choose to think in our lives. Very important principle to understand, because once you get a hold of thinking and that it creates everything that you have in your life, you can change and make it as absolutely perfect as you want it to be, because thought makes it so. 99% of who you are, you can't touch, you can't see, you can't smell. 99% of you is untouchable, unsmellable, invisible. It is what Ken Kais has called your conscious awareness. It's what looks out behind those eyeballs. What is that? It isn't cells. It's some kind of conscious awareness that you are. And make no mistake about it, you've occupied a whole lot of bodies already. If 99% of who you are, you can't touch and you can't feel and you can't smell, then what is it? Who is it? Where are you? What is this thing called your essence or who you are? And where does it go? Now think of this. You were in a body. I have a little baby girl who's 11 months old. And we were all in a body that size. Well, it's only a body about this big. Got fingers only this long. You know, got tiny, tiny little parts all over the place. I mean, she's only this tall. Now, is that her? Is that her essence? Because I have other children who are much older, and I am much older than that, and I can remember being 3 and being in a different body. Still me, still my essence there, different body, totally different, doesn't even look anything like when I was 11 months old. And then I was 13 and had a funny body at 13, but still my essence was there in a whole new body. Hairs growing all over the place that I didn't understand, all kinds of things happening to it, you know. Then hairs falling out of it later on, you know. Looking at those hairs that fall out and say, what held it in yesterday? You know, I don't even understand that, okay? And so it's like who I am has been in many, many bodies already, all right? And that essence, you see, everything on our planet that is alive can never die. It can never die. Life doesn't die, it just transforms. It just moves on to new places and new ways of being, new ways of being. And the way of being that is the most transcendent of all is this way that comes from seeing yourself as love and only having that to give away. Only having that to give away. Let's say I were to stand up here in front of you and just visualize for a moment that I have an orange. And I take this orange and I squeeze it as hard as I can squeeze it, okay? What's gonna come out? Juice. What kind of juice? Orange juice. Apple juice, any chance? Once in a while? Come on, now and then. A little mango juice come out of an orange once in a while? No mistakes, right? Never, no matter what. Next question. Everybody passes. These are easy, okay? Why? When you squeeze an orange, as hard as you can squeeze it, does orange juice come out? Because that's, not because it's an orange, because that's what's inside, isn't it? On our planet, when you squeeze something, what comes out of it is what's inside. Not too difficult, all right? Does it matter if your mother squeezes the orange? Does it matter what instrument she uses? Does it matter if you just had your period and then you squeeze an orange? Does it matter if your boss squeezes it? How about if your kids do it? Your kids squeeze an orange. Does it matter? Does it matter what time of day? Suppose they do it at noon, all right? How about at 4 in the morning? Does that matter? Whenever you squeeze an orange, the only thing you get out is what's inside, right? No arguments. Same thing works for you. Same principle works for you. It's a principle of the universe, all right? Someone squeezes you. That is, someone puts pressure on you. Someone says things about you that you don't like. Someone puts tension on you, whatever. Your boss says something to you that you don't like. And out of you comes anger. And out of you comes hatred. And out of you comes fear. Or out of you comes stress. Or out of you comes tension. Why? Is it because of your boss? And the way they squeeze you? Never. Is it because of your mother? I mean, she really can be a pain sometimes, right? Is it because of your children? No. What comes out of you always when someone squeezes you is what's inside. This is the vital principle of being a no-limit person. It's so crucial to get this and understand that. That if you have any hatred in your heart for anyone in this world, or any anger, or any fear, or any of those things, it has nothing to do with the rest of the world. It only has to do with what you put inside. Now, how does what gets inside of you get there? That's the key. How does it get there? As you think. Only as you think. You see, there's no anger in the world. There's no stress in the world. There's no tension. It's perfect. We've already established it's perfect place. It works just fine. It's all flowing the way it's supposed to flow. The evidence for it is. That's all the evidence you need. Just look around you. Everything out there is a miracle. Everything, including you. There are no mistakes. It's all perfect. And everything that happens to you in your life, whether it's a trauma, whether it's a disease, whether it's somebody treating you in a certain way, there's a lesson in all of it. No limit people understand the lesson in life, and therefore celebrate the lessons. It's true. And when you get to that point in your life where you're not cursing the things that come your way and blaming the things that come your way, and particularly blaming it on somebody else, and you hear it all the time. She hurt my feelings. How's that possible? How can anybody hurt your feelings? Your feelings come from your thoughts. No one can hurt your feelings without your consent. No one can make a fool of you without your consent. No one can embarrass you without your consent. These are choices that you have that come from the way that you think.
Where are you? You may feel depressed. And what will you do about that? Well, there's nothing to do about it. Because you would have discovered at this point that the depression, when it's there, is the you of the time. And if you try to get out of it by some sort of distraction, you won't really do anything except cover up the dirt with white paint. So if you feel let down, meaningless, somewhat depressed by this whole thing, and you see at the same time you can't do anything about it, what happens? Why, you're simply watching what's happening. You don't know what's going to happen next. And it isn't just watching something that is formally identified as a depressed state, because there's a lot of other things going on too. There's the world around you. There's your breath breathing still. your eyes looking still, your ears hearing still. All that's going on. And you don't know what to make of it anymore. You can't believe anything about it because you know that's all a hoax. So there's nothing left for you to do but watch it. And you have become inwardly rather quiet just because you're worn out. There's nothing to do. And you realize that all escapes lead back to the thing you were running away from. You can take a detour. Detours, 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 but they always get shorter. And you get back to where you started. So, when this sort of defeat of all enterprises and ideals and aspirations occurs, you find yourself naturally, and not in an affected or forced way, in the contemplative state, where you're just watching what goes on. And even if you're automatically thinking about it, because you realize that those thoughts are futile so far as changing anything is concerned, you might as well try to sweep dust on the stairs with bamboo shadows. And so you watch your thoughts as if they were the ticking of a clock, or birds chattering outside the window, or water falling, and they just chatter on, and life does its thing, and you watch. The thoughts, because they're just chatter, begin to go away, and the past has disappeared, because you know it's just memory. The future has disappeared because it hasn't happened. Never does, you know. Tomorrow never comes. There is no tomorrow. And if you don't realize that, it's useless for you to make plans for it. If you do realize there's no tomorrow, then maybe plans will be of use to you. Because when they work out, you can enjoy the result. But if you're not all here, you can't. So tomorrow can only be handled by those who don't take it seriously. So there you are. Now, if you've read the literature, which many of you have, of mysticism and yoga, Buddhism, Vedanta, so forth, you know it's said again and again and again that this kind of vision, this way of seeing, is always dependent upon transcending your ego in one way or another, giving up. Well, here you are. You've given up. Only you are not able to pride yourself on having achieved a great achievement. And this is the snare for all people who go into these spiritual disciplines. They make a project of getting rid of their ego. They're terribly proud of it. They come home and brag about how much they suffered, how long they sat and had their legs hurt so much. They're absolute bores. And this spiritual braggery is nothing more than blowing up and inflating the ego to a colossal degree, because the ego is undertaking the actually impossible but seemingly incredibly difficult task of getting rid of itself. So when you run into this kind of thing, don't be beguiled. All those disciplines to get rid of your ego have as their underlying design to persuade you that it can't be done. Not in a merely theoretical kind of persuasion, but so that you actually realize that you can no more get rid of your ego than you can put out fire with fire. It is precisely, you see, the ambition of the ego to be egoless. When you find a person who is what you might call frankly egotistic, makes no bones about it, he will be less egotistic, actually, than people who are very self-effacing. That's a curious thing. People, for example, who speak very frankly and tell the truth and come right out and say whether they like you or whether they don't, whether they want you around or whether they don't. And you say, well, can I stay overnight? And they say, sorry, but I'm tired and I don't want anybody around. You think, well, is that selfish? But that kind of selfishness is not really selfish, because with a person like that, you always know where you are. Nobody likes to impose on anyone else. You can't impose on that kind of person. That makes for a very comfortable relationship. So you owe it to other people to be as egotistic as you are. Then they know where you stand. But if you come out full of love and full of good intentions and make promises to all kinds of people and say, oh, you'll do this, that, and the other for them, and then you forget about it, or you're too lazy, or you think you'd rather not, they've been relying on you for your promises, and then you let them down. Simply because you weren't selfish when it was time to be selfish. So, you know, if somebody asks you, will you help me? Will you give me some money or something like that? If you're not going to do it, say no. And you shouldn't be ashamed of saying no. Because if you're going to do no eventually, do it now. But if you say, well, I'll think it over, I'll go back and look at my bank balance, that means no, but I don't want to say so. And people are always fouling each other up that way. So it's very important to be as egotistic as you are. Because the ambition to be less egotistic than you are is a very insidious form of egotism. And there is nothing more reprehensible than the ambition to be a saint.
Cancer has never killed anyone. It's fear of cancer that gets them. If someone were to say to you, where does the water come from? You would say, it comes from the faucet in my kitchen. And you would be right. But there's a lot more to the story than that. There are a lot of things that are obvious, and what doctors and scientists are really good at are examining current conditions and telling you what is. But they're not very good at examining current conditions and telling you how they happened or what to do about them. Their answer for most things is take it out. In other words, you feel vulnerable when you are not. You feel vulnerable because you haven't learned to flow energy, but you have learned to acknowledge the results of how people are flowing energy. In other words, all those statistics that everybody is noting are just the results of how somebody's been flowing energy. And we don't know why any statistic, they could say 9 out of 10 will end up like such and such, and if we were standing in your physical shoes, we'd say, so? What does that have to do with me? That has to do with how 9 out of 10 are flowing their energy relative to their body. I don't see how that affects me. And they would say, well, it affects you because you could be one of those 9 out of 10. And you would say, no, 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 you don't understand. I'm not one of those 9 out of 10 who doesn't understand about flowing energy. I know about my valve. I can feel when I'm thinking a thought that allows well-being to flow. I might have spent a few years not knowing, but today I know what I'm doing, and I am opening my valve and allowing the energy to flow. Every cell in your body is an energy vortex. Every cell is a transmitting and receiving mechanism. And these cells of your body, are talking about electronics again, the cells of your body are vibrationally talking to each other, and it is a masterful communication. Beyond anything that man has even come close to developing in terms of electricity or in terms of computers. It is masterful the way these cells communicate. Furthermore, every cell in your body knew exactly who it was and what its function was when you came forth. The cells in your body are constantly regenerating. You have a whole different group of cells than you had when you were born. They keep replacing each other. A legacy, a heredity, a passing on the torch, so to speak.
So the cells of your body are communicating with each other, and they are communicating with the non-physical energy, which is their source. The cells of your body are attracting the non-physical energy that you call life force. If your cells of your body stop doing that, they will pronounce you dead. The cells of your body do that even when you are not consciously aware. In other words, you don't have to keep alert to make sure that they keep asking. You don't take turns sitting up saying, stay awake so that the cells keep asking. In other words, you accept that this happens beyond your conscious need to pay attention. So as the cells are asking and the non-physical energy is answering, if you could consciously keep your valve open, and you're getting the sense of what we mean by keeping your valve open. The non-physical energy that is pure positive energy flows to you constantly. It could be likened to the water pressure in your house. It's always there right up against your valve. And when you want water in your house, you open the valve and let it in. When you close the valve, the water doesn't come in, but it's always there for you. That's the analogy we're offering with this valve. In other words, we want you to understand that the well-being is always there for you, but you have to open the valve. And if your valve is closed, no matter how much you're asking with words, if your valve is closed, what you're asking for cannot come. You have to feel what you're doing with your valve. So if your valve is wide open, as these cells are talking to non-physical, which means you're basking, you're appreciating, you're applauding, you're laughing, you're feeling good. If your valve is wide open, then as the cells ask and the non-physical answers, the communication is perfect and you are brought into easy alignment. Or your body stays in perfect alignment. But if you're worried about something, or angry about something, or fitful about something, or aggravated about something, then vibrationally you are sending out enough resistance that even though the cells are asking and the non-physical is answering, there is miscommunication. In other words, you're hindering the process. And in that case, sometimes your body can get more out of alignment than it would if you were feeling good more of the time. So, let's say that you're riding on an airplane somewhere and you are gloriously happy. You're on your way to do something fun with someone you love and you're feeling great. And sitting next to you on the airplane is somebody who is hacking, dripping, coughing some dreaded disease, a virus of some kind. And so this person coughs it into the air and you inhale it into your body. And your valve's open. In other words, you're feeling great. So in the moment that that virus enters your body, every part of your body knows it. And the cells begin talking to each other. Red alert, there's an intruder here. Let's deal with it. And as the cells talk to each other, they begin to communicate with non-physical. And non-physical begins to answer in a more deliberate, concentrated way. Because now you're asking a more specific question. Your cells are asking a more specific question, so more specific energy is being answered. Well, since you are consciously happy, your valve is wide open, you don't hinder that process at all. So this virus is dealt with, you don't even consciously know that it's happened, and you continue to maintain the perfect balance of your body. But let's say instead of basking, you're grumbling, you're angry, you're disappointed, you're frustrated. Your valve's not only closed right now, it's been closed all week or all month or all year. In other words, you're not a very happy camper. And as this virus enters your body and the cells communicate with each other and they communicate with non-physical, you have enough vibrational resistance within you that the communication process cannot take place without resistance. And so even though the cells are doing their work and the non-physical is doing its work, this virus still gets a foothold in your body. Then what happens? You notice it. I'm feeling achy. My head doesn't feel good. I'm feeling a little stuffy. I'm getting hot. Then what you say is, I wonder what's wrong. Or you say, I'm getting my annual flu. Or, in other words, then you turn your attention more fully to this thing that you don't want, and you further achieve vibrational harmony with this thing that you do not want, so that you further disallow. Now you are specifically disallowing the non-physical energy from doing what it would do otherwise. You see what we're getting at? Now, if it's a subject like a flu bug or the common cold, where you do not have much negative attachment to it, it works its way through your system. You don't hold on to it very long. In other words, if you've got something that nobody can give a label to, that's not nearly as destructive to you than if they can diagnose it and give it a label, because once they give it a label, then it hooks on to all of that momentum that's already been established. When you get hold of something that there's already a really well-paved path about, it's likely that you're going to go down that path a lot faster than if nobody had ever talked about it before, you see. So, what to do about it is this. You could spend your lifetime trying to convince yourself that it's not in your genetic history to have measuring the statistics and trying to make yourself feel better about this subject. Or you could say, my valve's closed. In other words, when you start noticing how you feel, and you are able to consciously keep your valve open more of the time relative to the less intense things. In other words, if people in traffic make you angry, then it's likely that something as monumental would make you negative too. You see, the more you are able to practice your valve opening techniques relative to the little things that come up day to day, the more you will be able to deal with these larger things that your mother worried about and that her mother worried about and that her mother worried about, until eventually you'll reach the place that you'll say, hey, none of that has anything to do with me. Now, it would be nice if we could have talked to all of you before any of you bumped up against any of this negative patterning. In other words, it would have been nice if the day you were born we could have said, welcome to planet Earth, all is really, really well with you. You're going to have a rip-roaring good time. You're going to bump up against all kinds of thoughts, but it doesn't matter because everything is going to be all right with you. All is well. If somebody could have instilled that knowing within you in those early days, then you wouldn't be standing before us with marriages that aren't working or finances that aren't working. But it does not matter what you've been banging up against. It does not matter where you now stand. The only thing that matters now is, what do you do with your valve relative to those subjects? What we would say to you is, don't take score too soon. 99% of all creation is complete before you see any physical evidence of it. You've been feeling really good. You've been feeling more powerful. You've been expecting more positive results. You've been doing very well, but you still have those old vibrational patterns that are still hanging in there, you see. And so you didn't have an instant cure. You just felt a little better. You felt a little better. Then something happened. It doesn't matter what it is. It's usually an examination by a doctor that triggers your sensation of not well-being. And then what happens is you have something happen that challenges your desire to believe that all is well. And then you sort of slump back into that old vibrational pattern. And we say, doesn't matter, just take another run at it. 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 Just convince yourself, first and foremost, that what happens in your body is a direct result of what you're doing with your valve. So we'll see friends who will get going pretty good on something, and they'll feel better more and more and more. Then some remnant of some past vibration will sweep in, they'll give their attention to that, and they'll have a sort of backslide. And then they'll say, this doesn't work. And we say, it is working. In other words, you are responding directly to whatever you are predominantly giving your attention to. When you have a physical manifestation of something not wanted, it is always more difficult, once there's a physical manifestation, not to give your attention to it, because it's a pressing part of every moment. You might feel sensation or you might feel discomfort. Now, here's most what we want you to hear. When you feel the sensation that normally you would conclude is something wrong, instead of assuming that something is wrong, acknowledge, this isn't wrong, this is something very right. In other words, this sensation that I have in the end of my nose or wherever it is, this sensation that I have is not about something being wrong, it's about non-physical energy flooding to make it right. In other words, rather than tensing against the pain, relax into it. In other words, this is help on the way. That's what a fever is. Everybody's worried about this fever. What it is non-physical energy coming forth in exaggerated fashion to rectify the condition of the body. And everybody's all worried about the fever. And we say, relax into it. Acknowledge that it's help on the way, you see. And as you relax and acknowledge, you can turn a throbbing into something that is quite pleasant. You can turn the sensation of a headache into something that is quite soothing. You can turn it's the tensing against it that is uncomfortable. When you relax into it, there is an acknowledgement of the role as well, and then there is usually a very speedy healing, sometimes instantaneous. Now, we are not discouraging surgery. Vibrationally take care of this, certainly you can. But if you carry this to a great extent, we think someday we will see you at your kitchen stove banging rocks together to make fire. In other words, do not feel uncomfortable about benefiting from the evolution of your society. In other words, all of this technology that is coming forth is not for you to resist as if you are inappropriate. Embrace it as part of the whole of moving forward, you see. You don't condemn your freeways. You don't condemn your power of utilizing electricity, you see. But what we do encourage is that you utilize all of that action on the heels of flowing energy. In other words, don't go to your surgery to get rid of something that's wrong. Go to your surgery as a facilitator of getting you to where you want to be. In other words, get your energy flowing toward what you want and feel the success. In other words, teleport yourself into your future and see yourself feeling great and feel appreciation for your body and feel appreciation for what other process has brought you to that. And if you then feel so inspired, joyfully go ahead with the surgery. If you feel inspired, joyfully go ahead with allowing your body to rectify itself. But we want you to not think so much about what you're negatively creating. We want you to think more about what the positive that you're disallowing, because that really is what's happening. There's well-being for you that you're either letting in or you're not. And every time you've got negative emotion, it means you're not letting it in. And the reason you're not letting it in doesn't matter. You might have learned it from your mother. You might have learned it from television. You might have learned it from some bad experience. It doesn't matter where you learned it. The important thing is your valve's closed. Get it open. We've noticed that most people don't focus until they have a strong reason to do so. And you all have trained yourself. Our friend was talking about it earlier, about being sort of trained to look at all sides of things, and you put up with a lot more discordant vibration than is good for you, or than we would. We put up with none of it. In other words, we never step outside the vortex. And so when you come to a place of posing a question like this, it's a good indicator, because what you're saying is, I'm at the point where I am now willing to be pickier about the way I feel, and I'm going to catch these vibrational indicators of vibrational discord at earlier, more subtle stages. Because you've heard us say, we say it often, that if life has caused you to become more and you're not letting yourself be it, so there's vibrational discord, and you don't recognize it by the emotion and then deliberately choose thoughts that cause the discord to dissipate, don't worry, the discord will get bigger, because law of attraction is responding to this aspect of you, and law of attraction is responding to this aspect of you. So the tug of war is going to get stronger and stronger. The resistance is going to become more and more evident. So at first, the resistance shows up in minor, you use the word minor manifestation, but it shows up in minor emotion. If you still don't do something about releasing the resistance, the minor emotion becomes more major and more chronic. And if you still don't do something about it, then you begin getting physical sensations and then other physical indicators. And all illness, every bit of it, no matter what, every illness is an indication of resistance. Every symptom. So as you recognize that you're letting your guard down, in the sense that you're not paying attention or not making a decision to do something different because of it, then when an indicator comes, bless the indicator. Bless the indicator. We don't see any of you sticking a happy face sticker over the gas gauge on your car because you don't like to see the empty gas tank. In other words, oh, it's empty. That bothers me. I think I'll just cover it up. Because you want to know you have an empty gas tank.
because you want to do something about that. And we want you to no longer cover up the indicator of negative emotion by pretending that it isn't there or by saying everybody's doing it. In other words, we want your standards of the way you feel to get higher and higher and higher and higher. We don't want you to put up with negative emotion. And in the moment that you decide that you're not going to put up with negative emotion, which doesn't mean that you're going to hide from the world, which may be the seeming reason that you've got negative emotion, it means you're going to change the thought to something that doesn't feel negative. In other words, you're not going to try to control the uncontrollable. You're going to control what you can control, which is the direction of your thought, which is the television programs you watch and the music you listen to and the people that you call and talk to and the blogs that you read. In other words, there's all kinds of things that you can do that make you feel negative emotion or that make you feel positive emotion. And when your dominant intent is to feel positive emotion, you will have no more indicators that manifest in other ways. In other words, the indication doesn't have to get bigger unless you ignore the indication. And it won't get bigger unless you're ignoring the indication. So what we hear you say is, I want to be more aware of what I'm doing vibrationally. I want my emotions to be more obvious to me. Now, in the beginning, it's going to mean you're going to have a little more emotional roller coaster experience. Your highs are going to feel higher and your lows are going to feel lower as you tune yourself to awareness of what you're doing. In other words, it's like activating your guidance system. The most effective way we know of activating your guidance system in a way that you can't miss it, so that then you don't need other manifestational indicators to show you that you're out of whack, is the process of meditation. Because when you sit every day for 15 or 20 minutes and you deliberately focus upon something that quiets your mind, listen to the dripping of a faucet or find a sound in an air conditioner that's buzzing and focus upon it, or count your breathing in and out. Focus on something that doesn't require much thought but that takes your attention. Sometimes Esther will start over 10 times because she'll start there, then her mind will wander, then she'll start there and her mind will wander, then she'll start there and her mind will wander. But if you are determined to find something that quiets your mind, put your brain on pause, because when you stop thought, you stop resistant thought. And when you stop resistant thought, your vibration raises and you spend whatever time you're sitting there in vibrational alignment with your broader perspective. That's like tuning yourself into the vortex. That's like practicing the vibration of in the vortex. And the more you practice the vibration of in the vortex, the more when you're not in the vortex at the early subtle stages, in other words, you might not be all the way out of the vortex. You might just be on your way out of the vortex, but you're so sensitive to the vibration, you feel it, and from inside the vortex or from on the brink of the vortex, it's very easy to turn and go back in. It's just not so easy to turn and go back in when you've gotten far out of it, you see.
Well, I think that's been the thing, because I feel like I have little things and those freak me out, and I'm like, oh, or they'll get worse or something.
Good. Esther's very sensitive to emotion. Things that she just rode with years ago now really get her attention. And some might say, oh, she's become hypersensitive. And we say, yes, she has, and it's a good thing. Because now she does not have to have manifestational indicators
that are huge.
Yes. So if someone says, oh, you're so sensitive, say, I know. I've trained myself that way because I believe my life is supposed to be perfect, and when it isn't, I throw a fit.
That's pretty much it.
Your children do, don't they? Don't they? They know they're good, and when you imply they're not, do you see the way they look at you? You screwy rabbit. I'm good. It takes them a long time for you to convince them that they're not.